Greetings. I'm Faris, Dixon, your elected district attorney for Pitt County. As a member of the North Carolina Faith and Justice Alliance, I have been given the honor of welcoming you. We are a coalition of faith-based groups and attorneys formed to address unmet legal needs of low-income North Carolinians, led by the Honorable Chief Justice Paul M. Newby. We recognize you as our local faith leaders. My office has partnered with other Pitt County court officials, including the Pitt County Clerk of Court and the North Carolina Pro Bono Resource Center, on a license restoration effort focused on assisting citizens with ongoing license suspensions. Through our collaboration, we were able to provide relief for unpaid traffic debt affecting the driving privileges of over 3,200 people who reside in Pitt County. As our local faith leaders, we are excited for you to attend this presentation for the Faith and Justice Alliance to learn about the debt relief that has been granted. This will assist you in learning how the faith community can access resources related to that relief. The presentation will also provide an overview of North Carolina Fairchance.org or ncfairchance.org, a website that offers eligibility information and the ability to request a free advice letter from a pro bono attorney for members of the public. This service is not limited to those who receive debt relief through Pitt County's restoration effort. It is our mission that we come together, both the faith and legal communities, to ensure that everyone has equal access to justice. And again, I say thank you for allowing me to.
Thank you, District Attorney Dixon, and thank you for your service on our Faith and Justice Alliance. Your voice is valuable, and we appreciate your partnership on this effort in Pitt County. And thank you to all of you who are attending today and who are viewing the recording after the fact. We appreciate you joining us to learn a little bit more about the Driver's License Restoration Program. To share a few more words of welcome, now we're going to take a look at a video shared by Chief Justice Newby. Chief Justice Newby is the chair of the North Carolina Equal Access to Justice Commission, our organization of which the Faith and Justice Alliance is a program. And so now we will turn over to Chief Justice Newby.
Hello, my name is Paul Newby. I'm the Chief Justice of the state of North Carolina. Thank you for participating in this event, sponsored by the Faith and Justice Alliance, which is part of my commission on equal access to justice. In 1868, a convention was held to revise our state constitution. 20% of the delegates were freed African Americans. The delegates adopted a preamble to our constitution, clearly stating the source of our rights. Our state constitution today bears that preamble, and it says this: "We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon Him, upon God, for the continuation of those blessings to us and to our posterity." The Constitution continues this theme in Article 1, Section 1, where we quote the familiar language from our Declaration of Independence. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by our Creator, endowed by God with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness." We added to this statement of God-given rights that everyone is entitled to the fruits of their own labors, recognizing the dignity of work. I personally believe God has a specific purpose for each life. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, which includes the private ownership of property. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., these are a promissory note to be cashed by each person. To protect these rights, our state constitution guarantees the courts shall be open and justice shall be administered without favor, denial, or delay. Equal justice for all. A barrier to equal justice is a lack of information available to everyone to help folks navigate the judicial system. As the Equal Access to Justice Commission considered this challenge, we ask ourselves, where do people go in times of challenges? Many of us go to our faith communities. The Faith and Justice Alliance was formed in recognition of this fact. Our goal is to equip you with access to resources so that you can properly shepherd your flock. We hope you find this presentation helpful. That's our goal. Please let us know if this is beneficial and how we can better partner with you to achieve our constitutional mandate of equal justice for all. Thank you for all you do. May God bless you. May God bless our great state.
We want to thank Chief Justice Newby for his leadership and investment in the North Carolina Equal Access to Justice Commission and his continued support of this Faith and Justice Alliance. And now we are going to dive into the substance of today's presentation about the Driver's License Restoration Program. And to do that, I'm going to turn it over to Lee WeClaire.
Thank you, Jared. Hi, everyone. My name is Lee WeClaire. I am an attorney with the North Carolina Pro Bono Resource Center, which is a program of the Equal Access to Justice Commission. And I am here with Megan Marty, another attorney with the Pro Bono Resource Center. The two of us work on driver's license restoration, and we have had the honor of getting to work with District Attorney Dixon on mass relief over the past year and are excited to tell you more about it. So I just want to thank you again for joining. We recognize that as faith leaders, you are often the first person to counsel a member of your faith community when they're struggling with a problem. And license suspension, as you'll hear, is a major problem impacting a lot of people across the state. I hope that this is the first of many conversations and that we can connect and find ways of alleviating license suspension and cultivating healing and security together with this partnership between faith leaders and the legal community. So first, we're gonna play a really short video. It was created by the Free to Drive Coalition, which is a national bipartisan coalition that's dedicated to ending license suspension for unpaid fines and fees. And I think it's a really powerful video that shows the deep harms of license suspension for unpaid fines and fees and the various impacts that it can have on a person's life. So we'll play that video and then we'll dive in to the presentation. Okay, so we're going to start the PowerPoint. I think that video does a great job of highlighting how having a license suspension can impact a person medically, financially, and how it can also lead to the criminalization of poverty. We are going to be talking today about license suspensions in North Carolina and their impact, and then really get into the driver's license restoration project, how to advise someone to access help when they have a license suspension, and then we'll talk through some tips for traffic court. Next slide. So just to summarize, in North Carolina, the DMV must revoke a person's driver's license if they fail to appear in traffic court or fail to pay a fine, penalty, or court costs that have been ordered by the court on a traffic case. And as of 2018, when we started the driver's license restoration project, there were over 1.2 million people with an active license suspension for one of those reasons. So that constitutes about 15% of all adult drivers in the state struggling with a license suspension for either failing to appear in traffic court or having unpaid fines and fees in traffic court. Prior to mass relief in Pitt County, there were 4,899 drivers in Pitt County that were suspended for unpaid traffic court fines and fees. And again, through the mass relief program alone, we were able to eliminate over 3,200 of these suspensions, thanks to the work of District Attorney Dixon and the court partners that he mentioned, the clerk's office and the court. According to data from the AOC, when traffic court debt isn't paid within a year, it's not likely to ever be paid. And the average length of a license suspension for failure to pay is over 8.5 years. So the idea is that a person who could be facing the possibility of having their license suspended will be incentivized to pay off the court debt before that happens. But when a person doesn't have the money to do that, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't have that effect. Instead, we see a license suspension lasting years and years simply because the person couldn't afford to pay. Next slide. One of the reasons that there are so many drivers who can't afford to pay the court costs and fines is that the court costs and fines have increased by 260% since 1995. In 1995, the General Court of Justice fee for district court was $41. So anyone who had either a traffic ticket or any case in district court would be charged a minimum baseline fee of $41. And now it's $147.50. So if the court fee had only increased to account for inflation, that fee would look more like $71, but it's really, really increased dramatically. And then there are other costs and fees that are going to be added on top of that $147.50, including if a person does fail to appear in court, a fee of $200 on top of that $147.50 when they do go into court to take care of that case. And if they can't pay off their court costs and fines in time, they are charged another $50 on top of that $147.50 that they couldn't afford to pay. Then you'll see to the right some of the fees that are specific to traffic offenses, the ones that say Chapter 20. Chapter 20 is the traffic code, and so a person, let's say a person comes in and pleads to improper equipment, they'll have to pay another $50 for that plea on top of that $147.50. Next slide. And as we've talked about, and as the video highlighted, a license suspension can lead to a loss of employment, high transportation costs, and commute times. And this is especially true, in rural areas where there just is not access to public transportation. We hear from clients that they have to rely on Uber to get to and from work if they can't find someone to take them, or that they have added on, if they do live in an area with public transportation, that it still adds a lot of time onto their day and onto their commute. And then less access to medical services and criminal justice involvement if a person does have to keep driving in order to get to work or take care of their family member, then they can be charged with driving while license revoked, which is a criminal offense. And not everyone is sort of equally impacted by this license suspension policy. There are catastrophic racial disparities that result in households of color being disproportionately exposed to and impacted by traffic debt. Next slide. Statewide, we know that Black or African-American drivers are twice as likely to be pulled over and have active suspensions for unpaid court costs and fines at a rate 4 times higher than white non-Hispanic drivers. In Pitt County, that rate was 6 times higher before we did the mass relief debt remittance. Next slide. Okay, so now a little bit more about the driver's license restoration project and how these suspensions can be eliminated. One way that people can get help with license suspensions is through legal clinics and seeking out individual representation, oftentimes through legal service providers that are available. And so this means that those providers will work to get the traffic charges dismissed where a person has failed to appear and has had a long-term suspension based on that failure to appear, or either the individual or the individual's attorney can motion to ask the court to remit fines and fees based on an individual showing of inability to pay. Next slide. And what we've done in Pitt County in partnership with District Attorney Dixon is what we call mass relief debt remittance, where District Attorney Dixon identified a criteria of cases that he was willing to motion the court to remit and ask the court to remit fines and fees for low-level traffic offenses that were causing a long-term license suspension. And then through the administrative office of the courts, we figured out what cases met that criteria. And then with the help of pro bono attorneys and the other partners that we've named today, the district attorney presented those motions in court, and that debt was remitted for over 3,200 people. Next slide. So we want to let you all know that in order to find out whether you or someone in your community has gotten relief, you or that person can go to ncfairchance.org, click on Restore Your Driver's License, and then search to see whether fines and fees have already been remitted for you in Pitt County. And then the other thing that you can do, whether you've had fines and fees remitted, is to request an advice letter. We have a whole team of pro bono attorneys who are willing to go through your DMV record, find out what cases are leading to a suspension, and write a tailored advice letter letting you know what suspensions are on your record and how to go about alleviating those suspensions. And we recognize that oftentimes it's not just one suspension that is affecting a person, and that there may be other things in another county that the mass relief couldn't take care of. And it can just be difficult to navigate these different systems, the court system, and then communicating with the DMV. And so having that free copy of your DMV record and the advice letter can be really helpful to figure out where to start and what are the next action steps. So I would encourage you to let anyone know who's having an issue with their license that they can go to ncfairchance.org, find out if they've had fines and fees remitted, and then order a copy of their advice letter and a free copy of their DMV record. And I just want to kind of emphasize that there can be suspensions on your record that you don't even know about or that the person doesn't even know about. And so if there's any doubt about what those suspensions are or how to get help with them, this is a great place to start. Another option, especially if that person you're helping or you already know exactly what is causing that suspension, is to go to a legal service provider and see if they're able to offer you additional individualized help. Legal Aid of North Carolina offers help through their central intake office, and there's information on your screen there about how to apply for help. And then the Blanchard Community Law Clinic at Campbell Law School is located in Raleigh, but they offer help across the state and across Eastern North Carolina. And there's information about how to get in touch with them as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Megan, who's going to talk through some kind of practical advice about attending court if you have a case that is active or hasn't been resolved yet.
Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Marty. I work with Lee at the North Carolina Pro Bono Resource Center. And yeah, I'm going to just go over some general information. This is not legal advice about what it's like to go to court. As Lee said, one of the main suspensions we see on people's driving records are that they fail to appear in court. And we hear anecdotally that sometimes people don't go to court because it's different and it's intimidating and they're not quite sure what's going to happen. So we're hoping that providing just some basic information about what your day might be like will encourage people to go to court and not get those failures to appear and not have those license suspensions. So even before you go to court, there are some things that you can do that are going to help make your day a lot less stressful. The first thing is to figure out how you're going to get to court. So if you're going to drive, where's the parking? Is it close by? Is it further away? Is it a lot? Is it street parking? Does it cost money? Questions like that. If you are going to take public transportation, what's the bus schedule like? Where is the bus drop off? These are all really good things to figure out a couple of days before your court date instead of 8:30 on the morning when you have a 9 a.m. court date. You're going to set yourself up for a much less stressful morning if you already know what you're supposed to do to get to court. Another thing to remember is that court takes a long time. You might have a 9 a.m. court date for your traffic ticket, but most likely everybody who has a traffic court date that day has a 9 a.m. court date, which means that it can take a long time. You could be lucky and be one of the first people that are helped, or you could sit there and watch a lot of people go before you. So to kind of plan for that, you want to take off work if you can. Along the same lines, if you can get childcare, I highly recommend doing so. It's kind of courthouse to courthouse. whether or not children are allowed in the courtrooms, but even if they are, they have to sit still and quiet. I am a mom of 2. I do not want to be in charge of keeping my kids still and quiet for long periods of time. And so, if you can get childcare, it'll make your day much better as well. And then you can also think in advance about what you want to wear. We normally recommend people dress like they're going to a job interview. So for men, nicer pants, a button-down shirt. Women, same thing, pants, skirt, dress, blouse, button-down shirt. It's like I said, anything that you would wear for a job interview. Next slide. So when you arrive in court, most likely you're going to have a conversation with the ADA. Now, if you have an attorney, the ADA cannot talk to you. So you'll have to wait till your attorney shows up. But if you're just going yourself, pro se, you will need to have a conversation with the ADA. And most likely that conversation is she is going to make you an offer of something to plead to, whether it's what it says on the traffic ticket or it's some other charge based on a combination of circumstances. Next slide, please. So as you're talking to the DA about that, there's some things to remember. 1, you always want to be polite and respectful, obviously. 2nd, you want to be respectful of the DA's time. So she has to talk to every single person in the courtroom, right? So she's got a lot going on. So if she asks questions, the more specific and concise and to the point your answers can be, the more you're going to get on her good side, which is never a bad thing, right? So but I don't want you to sell yourself short, right? If you have been doing work, like if you have a suspended license for more than one reason and you have already resolved some of the other suspensions, tell the DA that, right? You want to tell her that you've paid some fines, that you have other cases resolved, that you've gone to driving school, anything that you've done that's going to help you get your license back, you want to make sure that you tell her that. Another tip that's going to save you some time is if you have other outstanding tickets in that same county, ask if you can address them all at the same time. So whether it's because you had other old cases that you didn't come to court for and now you're coming to court, or it's because you got a couple tickets back to back, but they weren't scheduled, on the same court date, you can tell the ADA that you have other cases and that you want to resolve them all in one court date. And that way, you take care of it all in one court session instead of having to come back for another one. It is best if you have a list of those cases and you know those case numbers. If you don't, though, you can always ask the ADA if she will look them up for you so that you can work out some kind of plea deal or agreement that resolves all the cases in one court date. Next slide, please. Another tool that you have when you're talking to the ADA is that you can ask for a continuance. So asking for a continuance just means that you're going to get another court date, usually about a month out. And the reasons to ask for a continuance might be that you get there and the DA, she's talking to you and you just realize that this is too confusing. You don't know, and maybe you want to get a lawyer. So you ask for a continuance, or just you aren't sure what she's offering and you just don't feel comfortable about it. You can say, I need some time to think about this. Can I get another court date? I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds here just to kind of give an example of when you might want to ask for a continuance. But I don't expect anyone to remember this, but there are certain traffic court charges that if you are convicted of them, they have automatic DMV consequences. So for example, if you are convicted of going a certain amount over the speed limit, the DMV is going to automatically suspend your license for a certain amount of time. Or if you get convicted of a moving violation while your license is suspended, the DMV is automatically going to revoke your license for another year. It's not entirely clear what a moving violation is. It's not, some things that you think are moving violations are not, and vice versa. Like it's just not totally obvious. So if you are concerned about what is going to happen with your driver's license if you plead to a certain case, you can always ask the DA to explain and they might be able to answer your question. And if they can't, you can ask for a continuance to either find out those DMV consequences or to just better be ready to handle them when you know they're going to come. So a continuance is just another tool that you have when you're talking to the DA. Next slide. So after you talk to the DA, if the DA doesn't dismiss your case, or if you haven't asked for another court date and you're going to resolve your case that day, you're going to end up talking to the judge. And one of the things the judge is going to do is the judge is going to assess court costs and impose a fine for your traffic ticket. And when you get to that part, they say a number, he or she says a number that you can't pay, speak up. It is totally within the judge's discretion to waive the court costs and to not impose a fine. So if you say you cannot pay, it will kind of trigger an awkward conversation, right? The judge is going to ask you about money, and this is in open court in front of other people who could be listening. They are not listening. They are scrolling social media on their phone, but they could be listening, and that can feel awkward and uncomfortable. But you tell the judge might ask questions about your income or what sources of money you get every month, and about your expenses, what bills you're paying, to make a determination about whether the judge thinks that you are able to pay the court costs and the fines. The reason it is good to tell the judge at the time is that if the judge imposes court costs and fines that you can't pay, and then you do not pay them, your license will get suspended for a failure to pay. So it is better to try and get those costs waived than to just take a bill that you won't be able to pay, and it's going to further suspend your license. Next slide. So if by any chance, though, you have old tickets that you did not get the court costs waived, you couldn't pay them, and you still can't afford to pay them, there is something you can do. You can fill out and file what's called a form AOC CR 415, and it is a form that allows a judge to waive the costs now. So the form asks a lot of the same questions that the judge would have been asking in open court. It asks you about your income, it asks you about bills, and you just fill it out and then you file it with the court. Now, this is a relatively new form, and a lot of courthouses and clerk's offices don't have just set procedures yet for how to deal with it. So you might need to be a little bit persistent about how to file it, and what, just keep calling and asking, what do I need to do to file this form? It is also a form that does need to be served on the DA, which just means that the DA's office needs to get a copy. I'm pretty sure in Pitt County, the DA's office is in the courthouse, so you can just drop it when you file it as well. But this form is also, it's going to be a part of the AOC's guide and file program, which will be kind of an online portal that will help you fill out the form, but it is not yet live in that system. But that, I just want to let people know that that is a resource to help clear up old suspensions that are based on fines and fees that people still can't afford to pay. Next slide. I think that's all I've got. I'm going to turn it back over to Lee, and I think we're going to open it up to any questions people might have in the chat.
Thank you. And before we do that, not to put you on the spot, but District Attorney Dixon, is there just anything that you want to add or that we didn't cover that we should have?
Well, I did want to add that I don't know why I forgot, but the judge that presided over those sessions of court during COVID was the Honorable Judge Gwen Hilburn. And I, for some reason, forgot to mention that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we are so grateful to Judge Hilburn for the work and time that she put into mass relief as well. So yeah, it was definitely a team effort and an important one. Does anyone have any questions? And if you do have a question, you can put it in the Q&A, and then we'll be able to see your question and I can read it. Okay, not seeing anyone. So one person asks, what if I have a suspension outside of Pitt County? What kind of resources are available? And I think going to ncfairchance.org and just finding out exactly what suspensions are on your license and getting a copy of your DMV record can be really, really useful, including when you're communicating with district attorneys and judges in other counties, and just being able to see exactly what you have there. Also, the legal resources that I mentioned, Legal Aid of North Carolina and the Blanchard Clinic, may be able to assist you in other counties, and you can always also just do a Google search for legal service providers, depending on where that county, what county you're located in. So those would be some resources that I would suggest. Another person asks whether the advice letter and the DMV record are free, and they are free. So just if you just go to the website and you just put in your name and date of birth, and then you can see whether you've had fines and fees remitted, and then you can order an advice letter. We'll ask you whether you want it to be emailed to you or sent to your physical mailing address, and then it's a totally free service for you. Another thing I just want to mention is that we are working on an NC Fair Chance translated site into Spanish, and we will be able to offer advice letters in Spanish as well. And so look for that kind of coming up in early 2022. We're excited to be able to expand the advice letters for our Spanish speaking community members as well. Just gonna see if there's any other questions. Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to turn it back over to Jared.
Thank you, Lee, and thanks to Lee and Megan for that presentation. We appreciate their expertise on this topic and for sharing it with us. Thanks again to District Attorney Dixon for working with us to bring this event to Pitt County as well. For folks who are viewing this presentation, we will be following up with an email to all registered attendees from today's event with a copy of the slides as well as a copy of the recording of the event. So if there are people in your faith and local communities that you think might benefit from hearing more information about driver's license restoration in Pitt County, please share this resource with them. And if you take nothing else away from this presentation, make what you remember ncfairchance.org. That is the website where you can request the advice letter and additional information about eligibility for fine and fee remittance that Lee and Megan talked about. With that, thank you for attending today. We are glad to be working with Pitt County through the Faith and Justice Alliance, and we are adjourned for today. And we will follow up with you with more information and additional resources as we go along. So thank you all.